It's that time of year again when we take a day to celebrate fathers. Well, the idea of Father's Day is to give Dad an easy day and we show him our appreciation. The truth is that we really appreciate him the most the other 364 days of the year when he does stuff for us. For many people, a most beloved memory of their childhood was Dad building a treehouse for them. A place that they call their own, a space high above the ground where they could go and feel like they were adults, a place to feel like they were on top of the world. So while we may have fond memories of our treehouse, and most certainly fond memories of Dad building it, where did the idea of a treehouse even start? Certainly Dad didn't create the idea himself. That would be weird, as dads across the world were building them for their kids, and Dad just wasn't that influential globally. Well, it turns out that there's quite a story behind treehouses that dates back centuries. So watch and listen as we bring a Lego treehouse to life and delve into the real-world history of treehouses on this episode of The Brick Historic. The origin of treehouses is admittedly a bit murky. You simply can't point to one thing and say that's where it started. The reality is that people have likely been living in the trees for as long as there's been people. If you think about it, there's a lot of practicality to the idea, especially for our ancient ancestors. Being up in the trees can shelter you from natural occurrences such as floods. It can give you a better view of your surroundings, which can help you identify predators and enemies before they reach you. The height of the dwelling could help protect you from those predators and enemies. The natural canopy of the trees would offer shade from the sun and cover from the rain. As well, certain insects such as mosquitoes live closer to the ground, so being up high would help you escape them. Simply, it would have just made sense in many circumstances for early human beings to build themselves that deluxe apartment in the sky. But as I said a moment ago, the true history is murky, and this has a lot to do with the ephemeral nature of such accommodations. Being made almost completely of wood, especially back then, a tree dwelling would likely only last a few decades at most before decay would bring it down. All that aside, starting from the Roman era and running to the present day, we do have real, written accounts of treehouses that we can delve into. The first official record of a treehouse dates back to the 3rd Roman Emperor Caligula. Pliny the Elder wrote of a platform being constructed in a tree for the emperor. While we don't know the specific purpose, it was presumably to be able to look out for incoming enemies. Sorry to say, though, Caligula was still assassinated, so if that was his purpose, it didn't work out too well for him. The next recorded uses of tree houses involved gardens. The Medici family in Italy built them into their gardens during the 1400s as a place for people to sit and enjoy all the gardens had to offer. This caught on, spread throughout Europe, eventually making its way to England. By the late 1600s, everyone who was anyone in England had a formal garden with a treehouse in the middle. You know, this has been a very, very complicated build, and we're finding that we're using our brick pulling tool more than, frankly, we ever do. So let's take a moment and delve into the maybe iffy, at best, history of the brick puller. Lego has, of course, been a part of the human condition for thousands of years. Simply look to the pyramids. Scholars now agree that the building block design was a result of a contract with the pharaohs that was won by a man named Levi Lego over the Noah Group, which, quite frankly, was known more for its boat design at the time. Back in those days, the bricks were so large that the only worry was being drawn into slavery to move them and eventually crushed on the job. So really, they were considered to be incredibly safe by the governments of the time. Shrinkflation throughout the centuries led to the reduction in size of Lego bricks to the point where they eventually became a toy. As with all things, though, unintended consequences arose. By the 1800s, hundreds of thousands of kids across the world were ending up with damaged teeth as they had no other way to separate their toy bricks. This brought about protests in cities large and small. The matter turned deadly in a small New Mexico town in 1872, when Tiny Tim Dillinger, father of Fat Freddie Dillinger, shot and killed the local toy store owner after Freddie damaged his expensive dental gear on a 4x4 plate. By the early 1900s, the pressure became too much, and Lego set out to produce a brick separation device. The first such devices were often crude and cumbersome, from the original brick axe, to the Lego Wedgie, to the messy Brick Oil number 1, which was later rebranded Mobile 1. They even tried a set of fake teeth. A complete fail, but it still is a hit in gag gift shops to this day. Finally, in 1990, the designers at Lego stumbled across a design that worked well for pulling apart bricks. In 2012, they revised the design to separate bricks even better. This device, known as the classic brick separator number 630, now resides on the floors of youth across the world. While teeth continue to be destroyed by other means, such as copious amounts of sugar, Lego is no longer a leading cause of this calamity. Moving beyond a simple place in the gardens, treehouses quickly began to evolve as a place to enjoy arts and culture. Throughout England, people began to flock to treehouses as a place to listen to music of all things. As they became known as a gathering place, the concept was quickly adapted to dining. In a Paris suburb, a set of restaurants was built high up in a group of large chestnut trees. The restaurants could seat upwards of 200 patrons, and baskets attached to winches were used to bring the food and drink to the diners. Treehouses continued to fascinate and inspire people beyond even those uses, and they became a must-have for those with money. Up until the early 1900s, architects were regularly employed by the rich and by the royalty to design them their very own house amongst the trees. Before we move forward with the story of treehouses in our time, we thought it appropriate to take a moment to pause and reflect on the wonderful detail in this Lego build. The treehouse is a Lego Ideas set, which means it was initially brought to life by a fan designer. In this case, it was a man named Kevin Fieser, a hairdresser from France. Kevin spent 2 months designing and redesigning his original model, and then once his idea was accepted, Cesar Soares took the lead and worked with Fieser to lift the creation up to Lego standards. You have to admit that the two men really hit a home run with this one. The detail work of the cabins is stunning. Each has a different interior along with a removable roof so you can access the details inside. The tree itself has a very organic feel. Nature doesn't build in straight lines, and the trunk and the branches hearken to that truth. The set also comes with different colored leaves, so you can give the model an autumn feel if you so choose. The scene that has been set on the ground under the tree only adds to the beauty, as it features a campfire, a picnic table and chairs, and even a stream. This is by far the most attention to detail we've ever seen in any Lego set, so we wanted to take a moment to applaud the two men for their efforts. Treehouses in our time are taking many forms and being built for many different reasons. There are still, of course, houses being built for kids as they were when I was growing up, though for those who have the means, these structures are now taking on epic design details like rope bridges, lookout towers, and even escape slides. Adults are turning to the idea of tree houses in larger numbers than ever. This phenomenon is spread throughout all of the classes and all of the countries of the world. Those who are well off are building tree houses of every imaginable shape and size, and they're doing it for multiple reasons, from having a living space to a party space or even a home office. The environmental movement has spawned a return to the trees for many, as they're looking for a way to return to nature and have a more sustainable form of living. And in many parts of the world, tree houses continue to be a source of affordable housing, as the materials needed are generally cheaper and in greater supply than those used in the design of a modern home. One major difference in the Western world, though, is the rise of things like building codes. These days, many tree houses are built more among the trees rather than into the trees. This makes them more of a freestanding structure that fits better into the expectations of the local building inspector. While so many of us have a memory of a tree house and we're grateful that Dad built it for us, the actual history of tree houses is so much more than that childhood memory. They've been a place for people to play, to laugh, to eat, to relax, and quite honestly, more commonly, to simply survive. Regarding this Lego set, it's one of the best builds we've ever done. It wasn't easy, and it took us just under a week to complete, but it sure was worth it. And while we were building, we were reminded of our long-term goal to relocate to a more rural setting on a large plot of land. Now I think we'd seriously consider building a treehouse once we're there. Perhaps in our case, it could be our YouTube studio. But what do you think? Is this set as inspiring to you as it is to us? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for joining us for this episode of The Brick Historic. If you've not already done so, kindly hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. Please also consider sharing this video with your friend, as it's the fastest way to help us grow. We do hope you enjoyed the history of tree houses and this LEGO build. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there, and thank you for watching.